everyone. Very good to be here today. I'm really excited about this episode. You know what? I say that every time we have candid conversations because I bring the best of the best to you all. And so, for those who don't know me, this is the voice and the face of Dr. Funke Afolabi-Brown. I'm the founder of Restful Sleep MD and the Restful Sleep Place. And we have one mission, really to help families, including children, their busy parents, and their busy brains change their relationship with sleep so they can thrive and reach their fullest potential. And I have an expert of experts today. Really, really excited to have Maude here. Maude, I'm so excited to have you. Now, we talked about this title. The title of this session is really around sensory modulation and sensory issues with children when it relates to sleep. And if you followed me for a while, you know I really am very passionate about children, either children on the spectrum, children with neurodiverse conditions. And one of the things that they struggle with, not just children, even adults as well, are some of the sensory issues that might actually get in their way of getting good sleep. So super excited. I have so many questions to ask, but let's start by you just introducing yourself to our people, Maude.
Great. Anytime. So thank you for having me. It's been really good to get to know you, Funke, and to get to know your work. So I'm hoping for many more years of working together. Such an important topic, this whole sleep piece, I have a private practice in Glen Mills, Pennsylvania, right across the border from Delaware. So serving sort of the Tri-County area. And then I also have a satellite office up in Orfield, close to Allentown, about 2 hours from the other practice. And so those are my therapy centers. And then I have a academy where I train other therapists in the methods that I use. That's called the Maude Le Roux Academy. So that's really about me. So I've got several certifications and things like that. But really, the main piece is what you're so talking about, is everything hinges for me around how the nervous system is able to get us to sleep, is able to get us to take in information. That's really where everything pivots around.
Yeah, no, I think that's an incredible start. What is the Total Approach Therapy Center? Because I know we've had so many, we've had quite a number of kind of chats and conversations and things like that. And I really love the perspective that first of all, your expertise, and then your approach to the child, right? I think that is just really what we need. But maybe share a little bit with us what the total approach is and how you've sort of incorporated that into what you do, and now the center, the academy, and things like that.
Well, the joke is, I thought when I started out that a total approach means I'll work with the child in the home and the school and in my center. That's what I thought a total approach was, but it morphed into something totally different. And really, I'm so pleased, with everything that we were able to learn, and the new science that's come up in the last years has been phenomenal to support the kind of work that we were seeing on the floor. A total approach is really having a holistic view on the child and really viewing the world from the child's lens. And how does the child experience their everyday life rituals, their everyday occupational functioning? How are they taking in the demand that's placed on them to eat, to sleep, to get dressed in the morning, but also how to learn? How do I do my math? How do I do my reading? How do I pay attention in the classroom? All of those executive functions. So we basically do evaluations that sort of goes through that whole continuum of the foundation aspects of life, from the beginning of reflex integration in those areas into the organization periods where I'm building my praxis skill on top of my foundation, and then going into executive and learning academics and social skills and those. But it's a two-prong approach, because what we've realized is that if you only look from one lens, you often miss something on the other end. And so what we do is we look at the lens from the mental health perspective, the anxiety that developmental delay causes, and we also look at it from the sensory neural perspective. And then both perspectives are mixed. But then, of course, there's other things like nutrition. There's other things like you guys. And it's also building a network of professionals that really, truly wants to understand children. and to know when to refer out and say, listen, we need a sleep study. We need a nutritional diet expert here. So we don't do everything, but we put the packages together.
Hmm. Hmm. I love that. And I love just how, again, how collaborative you are towards this. So tell us a little bit when it comes to your center, really, who are the kind of like the main players? I know you talked about the fact that we've had those conversations about future collaborations because, my goodness, sleep is one of the first things to suffer.
Right.
But even within, say, for instance, your program,
Yeah.
who are kind of like the main players? Are they mainly occupational therapists? Is it like what does that include?
Well, the main players is the family.
Mm,
Okay.
mm,
So
fair.
for sure, we're very family based, and it is
Mm,
really the mantra of a total approach is equipping the child and empowering the parent. That's
mm,
really what it's about. So the team at
mm,
ATA is basically a whole bunch of OTs,
mm,
occupational therapists that feels the same way about loving on children, and
mm,
then we have speech pathologists
mm,
that we handpick as to how the orientation towards speech and communication goes.
mhm,
And then we also have DIR floor time practitioners who are using that as the emotional health and well-being as the co-partner for our practice.
mm, mm. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I love it. So let's go into sleep, right? Because one way or the other, I'm going to work that in. So tell us a little bit about, one of the things you talked about is calming that nervous system,
Yeah.
right? And sensory modulation. Just kind of give us a bird's eye view of what that looks like. And maybe share some examples of situations or scenarios that you see even within your practice and how that impacts sleep.
That has also evolved over the years.
Mm,
My practice opened in 2001,
mm,
and what I now apply is not what I did in the beginning.
mm.
So you always wish that the next client had what that the next client is now getting the benefit of all those other clients
Yeah.
before, right? But really, sleep is an integral part of rejuvenating my energy levels, my
Mm,
health and well-being. It's a beautiful place of putting my metabolism and
mm,
all those wonderful places that I'm sure you can talk about more eloquently than I can. But the part that we contribute is the part of the peripheral, the autonomic nervous system.
mm,
And so the vagus nerve is that wonderful meandering nerve that walks around our bodies, connecting all kinds of different organs to each other and different sensory systems with each other. And that vagus nerve is basically the brake system that we basically teach babies in peekaboo.
mm,
When we say peekaboo, we're very excited, and then they go into mommy's neck, right? That going into mommy's neck is what we call the vagal brake.
mm,
That first inkling of putting the system at work, that I need sympathetic arousal in order to get activated and get to my day, but I don't need it anymore when I have to tone down to go to sleep. And
mm.
so many of our kids, their minds race. They cannot tone it down. They
Yeah.
need, and then they go for the wrong stimulation, like they go for more screen time
Mm,
just to get the time over before I can get to bed.
yeah.
And then they go for more TV, more other things that can stimulate them, which
Mm,
is not helping.
mm,
It's basically to train the body to use the interoceptive vagus nerve to come up at the just right balance place to put that brake on so that the sympathetic arousal doesn't take over, that I can't get the rest that I need in order to tackle my next day.
mm. Are there more certain groups of children that you see this playing a role more than others?
I and I think I don't really like blanket statements,
Mm,
but I want to make one,
mm,
because you know this is our nervous system. We have a central nervous system and we have a peripheral nervous system.
yeah.
It's part of that autonomic piece, right? And so when I am struggling with a diagnosis, whether
Mm,
it's autism, whether it's ADHD, whether it's a reading disorder, inevitably my body is picking up a performance anxiety.
mm,
That performance anxiety is picking up sympathetic arousal. And right there you go. So it's really hard to say, Autistics, I would say 100% of the time.
Hmm.
100% of the time. Reading disorders, they might have a milder form of that. Once you work away the skill, we usually don't have to tackle the performance anxiety as much.
Hmm.
What they really want is to get the skill as soon as they can read, we have them, right? But ADHD, almost all the time. That impulsivity, that
Yeah.
they cannot delay that gratification. It's going to be 100% of the time, most of the time. I
Hmm.
think it's Barkley who said that if you really want to give ADHD strugglers, or can I say people who live with ADHD,
Hmm.
want to give them two skills: give them self-regulation and give them self-reflection,
Hmm.
right? And self-regulation is right on the bottom of the ladder, and self-reflection is right up here. In between, there's a whole ladder of skills that needs to be done.
Yeah.
So I think it's very hard for me to say anxiety disorders is going to be always.
Yeah.
And this is also what mental health talks about when they talk about the window of tolerance.
Hmm.
You're looking at Porges's work, when he's looking at the polyvagal theory, that
Yeah.
whole social engagement system that he has. When we deal with trauma, we do
Hmm.
quite a number of trauma survivors. We do adoption and attachment types of work as well.
Hmm.
And really, it's very hard to get away from it. That this is your and my adaptive
Hmm.
response. This is the way
I
we
know.
can enjoy life. We can feel rested when I'm with my friends, when I'm at peace with everybody. But when I continuously fighting something in my system that has to remain vigilant, then this system is almost always attacked.
Hmm.
Not all of them struggle with sleep though.
Hmm.
So what we do very carefully is that our questionnaire on sleep includes things like, how do they get to sleep? How do they stay asleep? How do they wake up from nightmares? Do they have panic attacks when they're sleeping? How do they wake up in the morning? Because a lot of times, if you just ask how do they sleep, the parents say, "Oh no, fine."
Yeah.
Go into the detail. No, this kid is waking up 5 times a night.
Hmm.
That's not supposed to happen until you're quite mature.
Yeah.
So you want to look at that. What is that pattern giving you? And then the other piece is, oh yeah, he sleeps like a log. There's a problem there.
Hmm.
If you can't shift the kid in sleep, right, and they're sleeping like a log and they're waking up groggy, and you're like, why is he groggy and all discombobulated when he wakes up? So all of those patterns
Hmm.
matter. And so
Hmm.
it's very important to take a careful detail analysis of what that looks like, because it informs the modulation profile.
Yeah. Oh, that is so good. And I think that piece you just mentioned is something that I encounter a lot, where it's like, well, you know what? Or another scenario I see is he has no problem falling asleep. There's nothing wrong. He just wakes up multiple times at night. But
Mhm.
you then have to step back. And this is something that parents are like, wait, no, I'm here for you to fix the nighttime wake-ins. And I say, nope, we're going to have to go back. Let's take a trip all the way back to the beginning of the night. And
That's right.
exactly what you said is I ask, how are they falling asleep? Are they falling asleep with the parents in the room, holding them in a bear hug, just to try to get them to calm down? Or are they falling asleep after you've delayed bedtime because they're running around the house trying to sort of work those heightened responses out of their system before bed?
That's right.
Um, are they falling asleep with a screen because they just really can't cope with just the quiet that
Mm.
comes with being quiet enough to sleep, because the noise from the mind chatter just kind of overwhelms them? And so really, really takes a lot of, almost like acting like a detective, to figure out where the issue is, because every single one of those things is a suggestion, I would say, that something is definitely amiss. I really appreciate your perspective on that, you know. So I think my question now is, because people are like, okay, sounds like me, sounds like my child, sounds like what I was when I was a child, right? So how do we then sort of figure out how to optimize this? How do we address the sensory modulation and things like that to improve sleep? What does that even look like when it comes to routines? Because that's one big piece that I think, many times it goes amiss because we just automatically assume. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, the best thing to do is to get a thorough evaluation if you
Mm,
think this is an issue for your child,
mm,
and it's not, and to search for the right OT, because sensory integration is a postgraduate training. So not
mm,
everybody has the sensory training. So just search for the right OT. There's many of us over there. It's not
mm,
just one place. There are a lot of people who are trained in it. Um, but I would get a thorough evaluation and somebody that can really extrapolate what is sensory modulation and what is sensory discrimination.
mm,
Sensory modulation are these arousal levels we're talking about. But discrimination is how deep can I touch something? If I'm going to pick up a cup of coffee, do I pick it up like this so I spill it all over my face, or do I pick it up gradually and
mm,
do a little work and then and swallow and put it down? That graded movement is
mm,
discrimination. So how I use my eyes, my vision, my ears, and all of those things, and how that actually intrudes on development and giving me a place of being that I can get my fullest occupation done. Right. So you
mm,
want to do that. You want to get that connection, and then addressing it could be a number of different things. There's a number of different areas to do. Um, the most common one is to look at, of course, doing sensory therapy, sensory
mm,
integration therapy. Um, but I think the other one that we use a lot, we use traumatic sound therapy, where there's a bone conduction element to the air conduction that goes straight into the vagus nerve. It's a complete vagus nerve piece, and we get a huge amount of good joy out of that program.
mm,
Nothing is a perfect cure all. The trick from the right therapist is to find out what's the origin, where do you target first, so you can get the most bottom layer of can I say fracture,
mm,
or the most bottom layer of where things have gone wrong, because I don't want to waste time. I'm not going to start in the middle if the child still has foundational stuff that's not there. So I want to start at the bottom issue as much as I possibly can, because my approach is really a developmental approach.
mhm,
And I believe that if development was good enough for the typically developing child, it's going to have to be good enough for the atypically developing child. It's really the only barometer we truly have that's true.
mm,
So if the typical child goes through it, then we need to get the atypical child through it too. So I use a developmental approach. And then you have to figure out, okay, for some kids, they need to go all the way to timing. So there's a program called interactive metronome that I get the sleep, I get some of it, and then they go up and then they go down, then they do better and then they don't do better, and then I get into my IM phase, my timing phase, and then voila, suddenly there, okay, there's where we have. So some kids are triggered more by the foundational pieces, and others have a little bit more later. And you just have to sort of figure out where in the continuum are we at this current moment, and where are we going to get the biggest bang for our buck,
mm,
basically, so that we can get the result that we need.
mhm,
Very results oriented approach.
mhm,
And again, there, it's not always, as you know, it's not always easy to know exactly where that balance is going to be, but we walk the journey with the family
yeah,
and we go with communication. They talk to us. What's happening at home? What are we seeing in the center? And then together, we figure it out and
mhm,
get to a place where we can feel reasonably okay.
mhm,
Of course, we need to refer out when we see these issues. That's going to be beyond what we can do as therapists, right? There's
mhm,
therapy, and then there's medical intervention, and
mhm,
it's necessary to look at the whole gradient. And
mhm,
there's kids who are snacking right before bedtime,
mm,
and they're struggling with things like silent reflux.
yeah,
That doesn't come up, like we would think reflux could come up.
mhm,
But it lies in the center of their stomach, and it feels like a chest pain.
mm,
Wake up like this in the bed, right? And so those are medical interventions.
yeah,
So that's why we have to be so careful to do a careful analysis of where are we going to have to look at and who are we going to have to pull in to
mm,
support us to get the job done.
mhm.
Really, working together is the answer.
It
That's
is. It is. I agree. I totally agree with you. Let me give you an example because this is something that I've had quite a number of people reach out to me, and I just wanted to hear your thoughts. We have a child, for instance, who has, ASD and really, really either has a hard time with just being so dysregulated around bedtime, and it makes it really hard for the family. Maybe doing some body rocking, head banging, self-steaming, and just really has so much going on in their system. Um, Restless, a little bit of a restless sleeper and things like that. There's so much out there.
Mm.
What would be just some practical things that families could do? Sometimes some parents have told me, well, you know what, even though doc, I know we're not supposed to overstimulate them before bed, but they are like, when I put him on the mini trampoline, we just get things like stabilized, or a weighted blanket, or some progressive massage, or they, and you mentioned also the metronome. So there's just like folks are just like throwing everything in there.
I know.
What are some like logical steps to even take for that mom who's like, well, I already know this is going on, definitely probably need to check out the total approach center, because we're sending folks your way, but in the meantime, what are just some of those things and some of your thoughts around them?
When it comes to head banging,
Hmm.
I would always ask the family, have they gone for some um, brain studies,
Hmm.
EEG studies, because sometimes there is some little bit of a piece of, unfortunately, we got to face it, some seizure activity
Hmm.
that can actually cause the head banging. And I would definitely want them to check that out,
Yeah.
just to rule it out, so we can know, okay, we're not looking at that. And
Hmm.
then we can go with the rest. So that's one thing that I think needs to be, the head banging is very, very painful for parents to watch.
Hmm.
Um, so that's one piece. The other piece that I would say to them is that, of course, we want therapy, right? So that's kind of part of the course. But in terms of home, it's looking at your sleep routine. It's looking at the daily expenditure of energy. It's looking at, is your young child still napping in the afternoon and needs to not to let go of the napping so that they can be more tired in the evening. There's like a daily investigation of the daily activities
Yeah.
you need to do to kind of figure out. And I think I've heard you talk about that before, so I know that we're on the same key there. But then there's also the whole bedtime routine about what happens in the home when everybody needs to sort of quieten down.
Hmm.
We're not blaring the TV one time in the living room and saying to the child, "You go to bed," and we're still going to laugh at the comedy show while you're in bed, right? It's that kind of a piece that we have to consider as a family, that every struggle is actually part of the family unit.
Hmm.
And then and so we do little sensory strategies and things like that along the way to see if we can ease the bedtime routine. But the one therapy or the one intervention that we love to train our parents in is we train them in a tactile integration massage.
Hmm.
And it's a specific massage that we learned from Maskatova's reflex work. And it's really a beautiful place of getting, can I say, having an intimate relationship with your child.
Hmm.
And I love it for bonding too, because I do a lot of bonding and attachment work. So I like it for that part too. But when they do this 20, 25 minutes in the morning, setting up the body for the day,
Hmm.
they do that again 20, 25 minutes in the evening before bedtime. I find that within 2 weeks, already there's a calmness in the home already but it's sticking it through, right? But
Hmm.
one thing that we always know is that consistency is key.
Yeah.
And so that piece, I think, is probably going to be a go-to for me to recommend, and we will train the parent how to do that type of massage that the whole body feels that, uh, so that I can say, okay, and then literally, I don't have a word for that. It's a
I love that.
feel. And so I say to them, just wait for that. When you feel that, the child is tense, and you'll feel, right? And then okay, now you're hitting it.
Hmm.
It takes a little bit before the child trusts it, because
Hmm.
sometimes, if the parents tried this technique today and then 2 days later another technique, the child's also looking at it like, okay, so this is not going to last anyway. So,
Yeah.
so just sticking with it, that's a big key.
Hmm.
The other thing too is the weighted blanket that you mentioned earlier.
Hmm.
And it's so important to use it the right way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if the child's one leg gets out underneath the weighted blanket, gone. The
Mm,
whole impact is gone, and they will kick it off themselves because it feels very disconcerting to their bodies.
mm,
One half underweight and the other half not.
mm,
So what we do is you have your fitted sheet,
mm.
put your flat sheet over, right? But then you put the weighted blanket and you fit another fitted sheet over. So you
Oh,
tuck in the weighted
yeah,
blanket. And then when the child slips in, it's there the whole night.
yeah.
Right?
Mm,
And so you don't have one piece slipping off the other piece. That's the best way to do it.
mm-hmm,
And like with every technique, you have to do it at least 10 nights before you're going to know if it's going to work or not.
mm-hmm.
But the heaviness does work for our kids with that has this vagus nerve issue. They
Mm,
need that heaviness,
mm, mm.
and it's hard when there's a kid with a temperature issue. So
Yeah,
now they're getting hot, but they need weight. And
yeah.
okay, what does the parent do, right? So we have
Mm.
to figure out how else we can get the weightedness in that we're not really also impacting on that. And there's another thing. Oh man, I have so many ideas. I don't want to take up all your time,
Oh, please, let's go. This is so good.
but there's this Under Armour has
Mm,
got these very stretchy, tight underwear that can be so helpful for the kids throughout the day, especially winter time. We're getting into summer now, so I know it's a bit awkward, but at nighttime to put that heavy, tight wear, there's another. It's Under Armour. There's Calm Wear.
mm,
There's Spio. All of those are manufacturing companies that can give you the tightness
yeah.
without giving you the heaviness,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
So that you can sort of look at that. But those would be some go-to ideas
Mm.
if I can just talk in general, but of course, every child's going to have an individual profile.
Absolutely. And I think that's one thing we always say here. These are just ideas. You can raise it up with your doctor and things like that. And I think one thing I would highlight too with the weighted blanket, like you said, it's about making sure the right weight. Usually you don't want it, and correct me if I'm wrong, anywhere more than like 10 pounds above the child's own weight.
You got it.
Um, and you also don't want it to be so tight that if anything happens, God forbid, that the child is not able. So if it's too heavy, you don't want your child to be trapped in it. So you want that snugness. And then I love the PJs that you talked about, the jammies. They're super stretchy. And again, if you think about it, it's about having just that constant feeling of pressure.
Yeah,
But the goal is making sure it's even. So if you
that's
have one leg out, one arm out, they're out of balance again. And then
right.
you start to have that dysregulation. So I think that is so powerful. This is so good.
And this is why swimming is so awesome.
Hmm.
If we could just take a child to the pool an hour before bedtime,
Hmm. Oh, wow. Really?
because the water
Yeah.
envelops the whole body, and you're really putting that body through the water, and you're getting that beautiful deep pressure, right?
Hmm.
So again, it's if you do it once or twice, it's not gonna do it. But if you do it consistently, but that's the same idea. That's the same idea you get with the PJs, as you
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I know there's now even this super stretchy, it's almost like a blank, I don't know, like a sack
Yeah,
that just holds them. It's like a tight hug all night long.
it's called a body sock.
Yes,
That's
body
right.
suck.
That's right.
And I think one of the things you mentioned, which I'll highlight, like none of these strategies work in isolation.
No,
So, and they don't just work randomly. It takes intentionality, it takes consistency. And you also have to make sure, like one of the things we talk about on this show is restful sleep starts from the moment you wake up. And so it sounds like even at the Total Approach Center, that's really your approach. How are they going through their day? So there's certain things that you can put in the day that sets your child up for success. And then you combine that with these strategies at night, and it really makes magic happen.
that's
So
right.
exposure to light, right?
That's
Getting them outdoors, helping, making sure they're eating whole grain, vegetables, very well balanced diet. They're well nourished. We're limiting caffeine. We're doing all those things. That really does. And then also for many times, these kids may be on medications for other issues. They may be on
yeah,
stimulants and things. So
that's true.
talking around the timing of those medications in reference to when they're going to sleep. You mentioned reflux, other things. And sometimes these kids have constipation, and just constipation in and of itself can really disrupt sleep. So looking I love that. Looking at the whole child, what else could be going on that could be impacting their ability to sleep?
I just had a consult this morning of a little girl that is just completely constipated since the day she was born.
Wow.
She's always had problems, and they have done every medical intervention out of the book. We talked about this and that and the other, and they've done everything. But she still remains constipated, and now she has. We don't even know if it's a chicken or the egg. Was
Mm,
the anxiety before the constipation, or was the constipation before the anxiety? But
mm,
now there's a real anxiety, and the whole family has become very anxious around the whole issue of potty training, right? And getting her to the space where she can be more comfortable with it. And so it's become a whole family affair.
um,
And it was so important. And then how it is impacting her sleep, as you say,
yeah.
it's really doing a very hard turn on her. And it was eye opening for this family to really discuss all of these other pieces too,
Yeah.
because they were saying, my issue is constipation. It's not all these other things, but
Yeah.
yes, it is. And so, if you're going to be, and this is why, if you've done therapy for constipation and she's already 4 years old and she hasn't had any relief, right?
Wow.
It's not always focusing on the constipation, but focusing on the whole ensemble of
Hmm.
how the body is creating an adaptive response to something that should be so natural to us.
Hmm.
And why didn't that go right for her? And
Hmm.
so figuring out the whole picture was very important. I can still see their faces on the Zoom call. They just looked at me like, we had no idea. I'm like, yeah, you only know what to do at the time that you know it. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So we have time. She's only 4. Let's get the ball rolling and
Mm,
let's work on it and see who we need to pull in as a team to make sure things are going to work for her, right?
yeah. Yeah.
But those are the cases.
Yeah.
It's we have a society today where we're focusing on symptoms,
Mm-hmm.
but the symptom is a symptom,
Mm-hmm.
and dealing with only the symptom is a band-aid.
Yep.
If
Absolutely.
she's going to be using laxatives all of her life, what's going to happen to her bowel system?
And yeah. And what's the end point?
That's right. So it's relieving her now, which is good.
Mm,
She needs that relief, but we need to find a permanent solution so she can get off the laxatives and her peristaltic movements can do the thing that it needs to do.
yeah.
And it's the same thing with sleep. We can give them maybe a white noise machine. We
Yeah.
can maybe give them whatever it is that they have.
Melatonin supplements. Yep. You're right.
Why can't they shut down their auditory system when they're sleeping?
Yeah.
Why do they need a mask like white noise or pink noise or brown noise or
Mm-hmm.
all those noises that's out there these days?
Mm-hmm.
And so why do they need that? We have to look at why those crutches are necessary. We're not going to ridicule it because we do need it, but
Yeah.
we need to figure out, could we do something
Mm-hmm.
to work around it so we don't need it for the rest of our lives anymore?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that makes so much sense. This has been just so valuable. Any final thoughts on just some of the things we've talked about, and also where can people find you if people decide, you know what, we definitely need to work with you? I know you also offer some free consultation and things. So how does that work?
Yeah, I think my email is probably the easiest way. It's Maude, Maude, at atotalapproach.com. Just, you can email me or call our office. Our office is 484-840-1529.
Mhm.
And yes, you just tell that you heard about us on the podcast, and we will give you an initial consultation for free. Absolutely no strings attached. Okay. We fully realize we're not a fit for everybody. But
Mm,
if I could help you a little bit on the way, I wouldn't mind doing that.
mm.
Okay. So just contact me and then we'll set it up.
Awesome, awesome. And I know you have a website as well. Is it the a total
Yes.
approach.com? Perfect. And I've just it's scrolling currently. And also there's a YouTube channel. You're
There's a
oh,
YouTube channel, yes. So
so
which is
many
on the
freebies.
so yeah, and the YouTube channel I built because therapy can be so expensive today, and finding the kind of advice that you're looking for. I'm not perfect. I don't know everything out there, but what I do know, I will gladly share. So
Mm,
I created the YouTube channel as a free guide so that people can go and look at, oh, this is what she says about interoception. Oh,
mm,
this is something to look at for how do you deal with a meltdown in my house, right? So it's practical advice. So there's parent stuff, there's professional stuff,
oh,
and so please just, have a little squiz in there and have a look, and if it talks to you, it does. If it doesn't, then, so be it.
thank you. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this, and I hope you're all taking something away. Really, I would say one big one is stepping back to say why,
Mm.
because there are lots of crutches, there's lots of band-aids out there, but making sure that we're not missing the underlying issue, which many times are actually treatable with the right team, the right tools, the right resources. They're available. You just need to lean in. And I love what you said, Maud, at the beginning. When it comes to the team, the main players, it's the family. So
That's
making sure that your voice is heard as a parent. If something is off with your child, something is off, right? And so really looking until you find the right answers so that you can get your child the help they need, because you're their best advocate. They can't advocate for themselves. And on that note, if you are out there and your child is struggling with sleep issues and you want to be in a place where you feel seen, where you feel heard, then give us a call. Check us out at the Restful Sleep Place. This is really a place where we provide holistic sleep services for children as well as their parents. And so you could go to the restfulsleepplace.com, or you could give us a call at 215-607-8297. It's been amazing and just such a treat having you today, Mo. Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, thank you, Funke. Thank you for the work you do.
Oh, thank you. All right, everyone. Until next time, I hope you rest well.
Bye bye.